Hello and welcome, Zest here. Hidden Hands and a Historic Hoax. The Lincoln Assassination, that grand, gory melodrama where history and farce tango in the shadows. Officially, of course, we're told it was a conspiracy, a word the powers that be seldom utter unless they're pinning blame on the usual suspects. No self-respecting historian disputes that Lincoln's grand exit wasn't the work of one demented thespian with delusions of Brutus. Booth, the matinee idol turned lead actor in America's first presidential snuff film, didn't work alone. Indeed, the assassination was a bona fide conspiracy, an honest-to-God, committee of cuckoos affair. The government, in a rare fit of honesty, admitted that much. The official story, preserved like a fly in amber in the nation's civics textbooks, concedes this much. 9 souls were rounded up, tossed before a military tribunal, because nothing says due process like men in uniform playing judge, jury, and executioner, and summarily sorted. 4 took the final bow at the end of a rope, 3 warehoused for life, 1 got a modest 6-year vacation in government housing, and 1 walked free, presumably blinking in stunned disbelief. As for Booth, the derringer-wielding peacock himself, he was shot like a rabid dog in a Virginia barn before he could deliver his monologue in court, mercifully sparing us the tedium of another trial. Thus ended the short, theatrical career of America's most infamous actor-turned-political assassin. And there you have it, the official tale in all its neat absurdity. A conspiracy acknowledged, yet curiously recounted as though Booth acted alone in a vacuum of bad ideas. It's a bit like saying a band played together, but only one guy had an instrument. A rare beast indeed, openly confessing to a conspiracy while carefully neglecting to follow the stench all the way up. The public, bless their trusting hearts, are spoon-fed this pablum until they forget it was ever a casserole of contradictions. Most folks, bless their addled brains, remember Booth as just another lone nut, a deranged thespian who took method acting too far. But the truth? The man had friends in high places. Let's not be naive. The real conspiracy wasn't hatched in the fevered brain of one bad Hamlet. No, it lurked higher up the food chain, among the polished boots of the Union elite. These were not men of action, but men of explanation, whose roles in this morbid melodrama ranged from curious negligence to artful misdirection. The real conspirators weren't the hapless patsies paraded before a military tribunal. Justice, military style, swift, brutal, and suspiciously convenient. No, the true architects were the very gentlemen who orchestrated the witch hunt, shuffling papers and whispering orders while the mob bayed for blood. Their behavior, viewed from the rear-view mirror of history, resembles nothing so much as a Monty Python sketch rewritten by Kafka. The whole affair reeks of a stage-managed tragedy, a grotesque puppet show where the strings lead straight to the upper echelons of Union power. Some behaved oddly, some suspiciously, all in perfect harmony. This was not merely a plot, it was a grotesque ballet of deceit, a kind of bureaucratic burlesque where scapegoats were sacrificed on the altar of national unity, while the true puppet masters slipped quietly out the back door, champagne in hand. The deeper one digs, the more the thing stinks of deliberate obfuscation, of men who knew exactly what they were doing while pretending otherwise. A mere video post can only scratch the surface of this macabre farce. What follows is but a whiff of the weird, a taste of the twisted, and a nibble of the noir that surrounds this most operatic of political murders. A humble peek into the carnival of the absurd, where history's clowns wear grave faces, and the real villains still grin from the shadows. The truth, as usual, is stranger than the fiction we've been taught to memorize. Stage star turned sinister, Booth's startling scheme. On that fateful April evening in 1865, John Wilkes Booth, that paragon of rational planning, decided to assassinate the President of these United States in what can only be described as the most sensible location imaginable, a crowded theater in Washington, D.C., the very belly of the Union beast. Never mind that this particular metropolis was, at the time, so thoroughly militarized that one could scarcely spit without hitting a uniformed zealot. The surrender at Appomattox, a mere 5 days prior, had done precious little to diminish the city's martial fervor. Battles still raged across the defeated Confederacy, from South Carolina to Texas, like the death throes of a particularly stubborn cockroach. Into this circus of paranoia struts Booth. And what weapon did our theatrical genius select for this momentous occasion? A quaint, single-shot derringer, the very embodiment of efficiency when confronting the leader of the most powerful military force on the continent. One must admire Booth's sublime confidence, or perhaps his touching faith in divine intervention. After 4 years of a war that had revolutionized the killing arts and flooded the market with every manner of repeating firearm, our hero opted for the ballistic equivalent of bringing a butter knife to an artillery duel. Consider the magnificent absurdity. Lincoln, potentially flanked by none other than General Grant himself, that stumpy, cigar-chomping architect of Southern misery, surrounded by a veritable phalanx of battle-hardened veterans who had spent the previous 4 years perfecting the art of ventilating Confederate soldiers. These men, having survived the bloodiest conflict in American history, would surely present no obstacle to a thespian armed with what amounted to an angry pea-shooter. Booth would not have known that Grant left earlier that day, citing a desire to travel to Burlington, New Jersey, to visit family. The logistics of Booth's plan reveal a mind operating on a plane of existence unfettered by the mundane constraints of probability. To succeed, he would need to discharge his solitary bullet with the precision of a divine thunderbolt into Lincoln's noggin, then, having miraculously avoided being torn to pieces by the president's entourage, escape through a theater packed with armed and suddenly very agitated citizens. From there, a pleasant evening stroll through a city swarming with soldiers, all of whom would not be in the most forgiving of moods upon learning of Lincoln's demise. Upon reaching the Potomac, assuming our hero hadn't been transformed into a colander by that point, he would need to cross the Navy Yard Bridge, which operated under the quaint policy of absolutely no assassins after curfew without prior written authorization. One imagines Booth planned to charm the rifle-bearing sentries with a dramatic soliloquy while brandishing his dagger. Most delicious of all, Booth, a man whose visage was as recognizable to Americans as contemporary P.T. Barnum's elephants, made no attempt at disguise. This Elvis, minus the rocking sideburns, of the 1860s stage, whose face adorned the bedroom walls of swooning debutantes across the nation, apparently believed himself invisible. One wonders why he didn't simply wear a placard reading "Presidential Assassin" to complete the ensemble. And why Ford's Theater, of all places? The cosmic joke intensifies when one considers that Lincoln regularly wandered Washington unprotected, like a particularly tall and melancholy tourist. Booth could have dispatched him in any number of secluded locations, perhaps while disguised as, I don't know, a bearded Orthodox rabbi with ponytails. Bang, bang. Slip through an alleyway, ditch the disguise, grab a beer, and watch the chaos unfold. Easy, efficient, effective. But no, our theatrical mastermind insisted on maximum difficulty and minimum probability of success. And finally, why act alone? No backup. Just one theatrical egotist on a kamikaze improv act. A crowning absurdity. Undertake this enterprise alone. A symbolic blow for the Southern cause so momentous, so fraught with significance, executed without a single Confederate. Let's be frank, the entire escapade reeks less of heroic grandeur and more of a badly scripted farce. Was John Wilkes Booth then a divine instrument or a 19th century superhero blessed with powers beyond mortal ken? A time-traveling Batman with a flair for the dramatic? Or perhaps and I hesitate to suggest something so prosaic, the beneficiary of a vast conspiracy? With all due respect to the caped crusader and his utility belt of improbable gadgets, I shall cast my lot with the latter explanation, leaving the former to those who find comfort in fairy tales and the historical equivalent of Santa Claus.